So I keep getting this one requested. Fine, you have asked, emailed and sent enough messages via Discord. It is time to have a good look at how powerful the Adeptus Custodes, the 10,000 golden bodyguards of the God Emperor himself, really are. First, we will go over the lore, trying to understand how truly scary these guys are. Then we will cover the excerpts in which we see them obliterate Space Marines, take down an entire Tyranid hive tendril, and even kill the Thunder Warrior Primarch Ushan with terrifying ease. Ending with a ranking on the 40k power skill. So stick around until the end to find out what makes Custodes so damn powerful, and so you can properly argue with your friends why your Golden Boy army is definitely a lore pick and not a meta pick. The Custodes are the Emperor's personal bodyguard, acting as both his most noble emissaries and pitiless executioners. They were the Emperor's firstborn gene-crafted warriors, predating both the Thunder Warriors and Space Marines. The Custodes have become the symbol of the Emperor's wrath over more than 10,000 years of their service. To an ordinary man, they are warriors of near godlike proportion and skills. Even to the Thunder Warriors and Astartes, they are figures of legend. Created from the dreaded lore of the Dark Age of technology, combined with the personal know-how of the Emperor's godlike genetics, and armed with the very best equipment and armor available within the entire Imperium, the Custodes know no equal, and only the Primarchs and the Emperor himself rise above them. It goes without saying that these bodyguards, with their absolute loyalty, have been assigned to protect the Emperor's person since the Unification Wars, and would later on protect the Master of Mankind's secrets, vaults, and what would become known as the Imperial Palace. To be a Custodes is to be one among 10,000 within the whole galaxy. As well, the Emperor and the Selenar gene cults on Luna created the Space Marines into mighty legions, ranging into the millions. Over 2 million combined actually. And the Guard grew into 3 trillion active soldiers. The Custodes are 1 in a quadrillion. 1 in many generations of the entire galaxy. Of course, with the Emperor's interment upon the Golden Throne, the Custodes have grown into something even more mythical for humanity. But after 10,000 years of watching, the time has finally come for them to stride into the galaxy with numbers not seen since the Horus Heresy, and woe upon those who oppose him on Terra. The Space Marines are known as the Emperor's Angels of Death for many reasons, and although some facets of the Custodes' recruitment and creation are shared by the Adeptus Astartes, the two could not be any more different in personality and behavior. Both types of warriors inspire awe, and even impose what the Space Marines dub as superhuman dread, where a mortal cannot comprehend the size and speed of the Emperor's finest fighting right in front of their eyes, introducing a PTSD-like state. What a Space Marine is to a guardsman, a Custodes is to a Space Marine. To the most faithful and loyal servants of the Imperium, Custodes are literal gods worthy of worship. Some Custodes deeply care for those who serve the Emperor, are kind and show a level of humanity completely removed from the Space Marines, and even becoming friends with the monstrous Sisters of Silence for their shared goals. But others, just like the Astartes, take a distaste for those not worthy of ascension, seeing them as nothing more than cattle to be protected. For all their greatness, some of the Custodes truly have no charisma. Yet, when it comes to treason and betrayal, the Custodes are the most ruthless and cold force within the entire Imperium. They cut down Chaos Space Marines with utter disgust and silence. The terrifying ease with which Custodes slaughter Astartes can be compared to a feral dog released on the children's playground. Any resistance from mortal soldiers, even if they are some of the best unaugmented soldiers such as did the best of science, are turned into literal children as the Custodes wade through enemy fire, cutting their foes down with perfectly calculated thrusts. Yet, while they are capable of compassion, it does not mean Custodes show it often. When delivering Primarchs reinforcements to their new parent chapters, the Custodes were often formal, cold, and even outright hostile, more than once killing Astartes captains and chapter masters that dared oppose the Emperor's will for the Primarchs integration, being shrouded in both an aura of fear and worship. When a single Custodes arrived before a rebelling crowd, it turned a massive riot into a peaceful surrender. The rioters folded in on themselves as people gave into terror and fled, while others sought penance for the heresies they committed and begged for mercy. While the Emperor denounced religion and being a god, the ecclesiarchy has become a controversial topic among the Custodes. As while they respect the likes of the Sisters of Battle for their loyalty and skill as a warrior, their faith and fanatism is something that grinds the gears of most Custodes, with some outright mocking their zealotry. If that was enough lore for you and you want to get to the juicy excerpts and the power scaling, you can skip to this number on the screen. It's just for those that want a deep dive and want all the information. This is for you. As the Imperium grew during the Great Crusade, it was initially thought that the Legio Custodes were a different and more advanced type of Space Marine Legion, but this could not be further from the truth. The first appearance of the Custodes begins back during the Unification Wars, where they started out first as a set of 4 Golden Guardians. Years later, the Emperor's Guard grew to an impressive 30 warriors, and 8 decades later, hundreds of Golden Giants fought at the Battle of Red Frost. Their origins within the Unification Wars, however, is not what sets apart the Custodes. For instance, they recruit exclusively infants, which during early Imperial history were taken from slain warlords and enemies of the Emperor. Others, such as Ra and Dimion, had different origins, such as being taken from his mother after her execution for stealing the last of Terra's water. Custodes also lacked the distinct addition of additional organs, augmatics or crude grafts. The decade-long process to create a single Custodes sees thousands of candidates die or be eliminated as the transformation develops. Practically, they are rebuilt from the ground up on the cellular and DNA level. It is even thought their souls are impacted by this process, possibly pointing towards a soul-binding process between the recruits and the God Emperor himself. The babies who survive to become full-fledged Custodes become a new person entirely and unrecognizable from their own families. When the Emperor still could, he was personally involved in each Custodes creation. His methods were so far beyond human comprehension, it was often seen as biomancy or alchemical sorcery. With their high mortality rate, yet insane prestige, there have been entire clans who have sent whole generations to the Emperor to join the Custodes. But with the evolving nature of Terra, in more recent times, Terra's nobility sends their youngest generations out in the hopes of supplying the right genetics. The Custodes are actually also famed for picking names dating back to Terra's ancient history, such as kings, gods, heroes or philosophers, in order to remind the galaxy of Terra's long history and nobility. On occasion, however, the Custodes are also known to pick candidates encountered during their missions if they meet the criteria only known to them and the Emperor himself. The one-man army each Custodes is turned into also has a rather dark and misfortunate origin within the dark age of technology. As the abominable technology ran rampant, gene crafting became widespread, especially on Terra itself. During Old Night, many scientist kins and techno-demagogues rose using abhorrent techniques to create abhuman and monsters. These gene-wrought monstrosities were left to fester and grew worse, resulting in the Emperor being forced to create the Thunder Warriors, essentially him fighting fire with fire. While the Thunder Warriors were exterminated primarily by the Custodes, and their survivors hunted down by the first Angels of Death who would become the Legiones Astartes, the Custodes remained highly distinct from the Space Marines, because they were not a military organization. Instead, the Custodes were a paramilitary. Their duty was not to win wars and conquer planets, but to enact the Emperor's will. And for this, they were created to dominate the battlefield. With the fall of the Emperor and the Horus Heresy ended, it would result in him being unable to oversee the creation of his newest Guardians. This led to the task of creating the Custodes being handed over to a group of the best chirurgeons and bioalchemists on Terra within the Imperial household. This duty, however, even with the centuries of experience and knowledge, remains so far above the skill of normal humanity that even the scientists themselves are enhanced into something more than human within their gilded and hidden laboratories. Another element of their creation process is the insane amount of knowledge fed into their minds. The arts of death, deceit, destruction, and even assassination are of vital importance to their daily tasks. But each Custodes is also intended to fully understand politics, war, philosophy, history, art, and countless other subjects. An often overlooked role of the Custodes is to be the companions of the Emperor with whom he conversed and debated regularly. After the interment of the Emperor on the Golden Throne, the Custodes had also inherited the worst of all knowledge, and no secret was beyond them. Only Reboot Gilliman and the 10,000 can truly understand how far the Imperium has fallen, and just how butchered the Emperor's dream has become. This knowledge and the sheer quantity of it have even turned some amongst the potential recruits insane, right before they are brutally eliminated. Should a potential recruit be deficient in any quality, whether that be biology, psychology, loyalty, or obedience, they are discarded without remorse or hesitation. Absolutely no cost is spared when equipping each Custodian. Their weapons are handcrafted masterworks forged by hereditary artisans and hidden away in subcults of the Martian Mechanicum present on Mars. Even these artisans are gene-forged to possess dexterity and patience beyond any human man, so that they may never fail in their duties of creating the perfect weapons. The Custodes also post the Magisterium Lex Ultima, an edict which means that the Custodes obey only their internal organization and the Emperor himself, and that the wider Imperium is subservient to the Custodes at all time. This has led the Custodes to rarely possess their own ships, such as the Falchion-class battleship, but instead commandeer an Imperial Navy vessel. With their every weapon being a handcrafted weapon made by the finest artisans, the Custodes boast the most impressive armory within the whole Imperium, and are one of 2 organizations to have access to the Emperor's personal vaults, the others being the Sisters of Silence. Having access to whatever weapons the Custodes desire, in this video we will cover the standard loadouts seen on most of the Custodes range, their Vexillas, the Misericordia, Guardian Spears, Adratic weapons, and of course, their armor. The Guardian Spear is the signature weapon of the Custodes and their badge of office. It is one of the most elegant and deadly weapons within the Imperium, as it combines a potent power blade with the most advanced bolter technology so far produced. In the hands of a Custodian, a Guardian Spear is a blur of death as it strikes and parries at blinding speeds. On occasion, there have also been Guardian Spears replacing their bolter for a Melta-gun or Adratic Destructor, reserved only for the most deadly of foes. A subtype of the Guardian Spear is the Paragon Spear, who manages to be even more deadly and are all ancient relics wielded by only the best shield captains and the tribunes, some believed to be from the golden age of humanity, predating even the Unification Wars. With such crazy weapons, their armor of course is something that needs to match their grandeur. Made from aramite worth the ransom of an entire world, the Custodes enter battle in the pinnacle of armor. Aramite has only been used rarely outside of the Custodes, such as the armor worn by the Emperor himself, Rogel Dorn, and maybe even Sanguinius. To further protect and enhance a Custodian, his personally crafted suit contains refractor field generators and advanced proximity sensors. The final note of their armor is the fact that when Custodes earn new names, it is carved on the inside of their armor, and sometimes even microscopically lasered into their bones as well. Alright, time for a fun one. The Misericordia has a long and honestly terrible history on Terra, from before the Unification Wars. These deadly daggers and short swords were tools of oppression, wielded by tyrants and ruthless warlords. Yet to the Emperor, he valued them, as back then, the Misericordia was also known as the Blade of Mercy. Within the ranks of the Custodes, these micromolecular dissonation blades are given upon completion of their training and hand-tailored to their unique grip. The Emperor hoped to change the outlook of the Misericordia by having only his Custodians wield them after the Horus Heresy. But instead, they became synonymous with the terrible vengeance of the Custodes of what they would inflict upon the traitor Space Marines. The Vexilla Magisterium might on the surface seem like any other banner or standard, designed to inspire soldiers, but let me tell you, these golden eagles are insane. Several different Vexillas exist, ranging from the strength-enhancing Imperius to the massive refractor field generating Defensor, but the most deadly are the Vexilla Magnifica. Although every Vexilla is capable of sapping the energy, strength and resolve from an enemy force, and in turn empowering friendly soldiers to new heights of strength and bravery, the Vexilla Magnifica uses a mixture of light and sound to not only flashbang an entire army, but it is so potent it cripples the enemy mid-battle, turning them into easy targets. It should therefore not be surprising that each Vexilla is a handcrafted marvel of technology that took over a century to make by the Oathsworn artificers of the Tower Aquilane on Terra. Perhaps the scariest weapons fielded by humanity and my personal favorite. Adratic weaponry are potent relics from the Dark Age of technology, believed to be unique only to Terra. The unstable energy beams fired by these weapons sever the internal bonds of the matter, causing whatever they hit to unravel, and leaving only a flaring after image of what once was. These weapons are rumored to sever the soul from the body, and therefore the Emperor fought hard to ensure that every Adratic weapon within the galaxy was safely secured within his hands, because if this thing was shot at the Perpetual, it could kill them forever. Those who dared wield them against the Emperor during the Unification Wars would have their entire land and nation burned to the ground. Ever since, only his personal weaponsmiths have learned how to replicate these nightmarish guns, much to the annoyance of Mars, who really want to mass produce them. Fun fact for you, they are very similar to the Necron Gauss Blaster. Alright, that was the base lore, what they are like, and equipment out of the way. Let's see how strong they are in the novels. Similar to the Space Marines, Custodes have a wide range of vehicles to pick from, one of them being a goddamn dreadnought. But what's better than a dreadnought? A dreadnought killing actual millions of demons. Sagittarius was among the first 30 Custodes to have ever served the Emperor, and to be the first ever Custodes to be entombed within a dreadnought. The Emperor would personally carve, "Only in death does duty end," into Sagittarius's chassis. Later on, he would personally command and lead the Custodes and the other Imperial forces during the horrific war within the Webway, while the Siege of Terra raged in reality. The fighting was the fiercest the Imperium had ever seen, as demons dragged down titans by sheer weight of hundreds of thousands of clawing bodies. The Custodes were pressed to their very limit, and wounded unlike ever before. Sagittarius killed demons by the thousands. With his massive power fist and Kyr's assault cannon, he made short work of anything that challenged him. Under his command, the Custodians fought non-stop for 293 hours against an unending swarm of demons. Master-wrought weapons dulled into crude, ruined pieces of metal. Sagittarius fought until the Emperor finally arrived to end the war, and the ancient dreadnought nearly fell at the hands of the Archimandrite, who was a living avatar of the Unmaker god. By some miracle, Sagittarius was saved by Arkan land. Okay, Custodes versus Demons, check. Now let's have a look at some Custodes versus demonic Astartes. The Emperor had assigned a group of 5 Custodes to watch over Lorgar and his legion after the burning of Monarchia. The first of their number died on Cadia, sacrificed to the dark gods unbeknownst to the others. Another died when fighting Incarnadine, a conqueror-class robot who ambushed the Custodes when they sought to slay Cyrene. During the wider fight, the 4 Custodes had butchered half the ship's crew before leaving. Their gunship, however, would be shot down and crash on Istvan 5, where they would face 11 of the demonically possessed Galfarbak, who sought to avenge the death of Cyrene. The 3 remaining Custodes slew 4 of the Wordbearers, before Neuralis fell when he was decapitated by the traitor Malnor and was forced to chop the body to pieces when it refused to die. Sikar was the next Wordbearer to fall at the hands of Aquilin, who in turn was killed by Argol Tal. The last Custodes, Citran, who had sworn an oath of silence, was the last to stand. He removed his helmet when the final 6 Galfarbak charged, and he simply hurled his guardian spear at one of them. Citran had smiled as the other 5 descended upon him. He considered his vow of silence complete given the circumstances, and he laughed at the warriors he'd killed.
I always hated you, Zephan.
Now for some more loyalist on loyalist action. Did you know a single Custodes absolutely slaughtered a squad of Dark Angel Deathwing, some of the most elite Astartes to have ever existed? When a squad of the Deathwing most elite pursued the fallen angel cipher on Terra, the squad of 10 led by a librarian ran into the Custodes Shadowkeeper known as Hackeron. The Astartes hesitated before opening fire on the Custodes, hoping to silence him on the fact that the fallen existed. Although both sides were loyal to the Emperor to an extreme, the Deathwing would stop at nothing to pursue the fallen, and the Shadowkeeper would not accept the trespassing of the Imperial Palace. In less than 6 seconds, Hackeron killed 6 Astartes until the librarian finally unleashed his powers to stop the Shadowkeeper in his tracks, yet he still moved, pushing his will over the insanely powerful Psyker. Librarian Mordaki felt blood vessels in his throat and skull burst, as the Custodian resisted, until 2 missiles struck Hackeron right in the chest, and the rest of the squad fired their bolters dry into him. He was still twitching afterwards, and made a full recovery. Okay, so Custodes against individual warriors is generally no problem, but what about millions upon millions of enemy combatants? A hive fleet swarmed for the world of Logue 2, a death world with no population, but the Custodes came from the Golden Light. 6 Wardens under Shield Captain Tamerlane arrived in orbit. The Terra Nostra and her escorts were destroyed, but it mattered not. The Aramite casket they brought would be a beacon for reinforcements. The Custodes knew they had to be a bulwark on which to break the endless swarm, and constructed a crude fort of basalt and obsidian. When they placed the walls they would defend, a multi-million strong horde of bioforms came. An endless tide of carnage would be pushed back by bolter and blade. For hours the swarm gained nothing, they could not break the golden circle. As night came, the Custodes would face lightning storms and volcanic eruptions as the hype ships forced the world into an apocalypse. Lictors and warriors swarmed in the night only to be met with defeat. To the Custodes, their fort of stone and corpses was no different than the Eternity Gate. Dranax died first after repeated blasts of bioplasma. The smaller creatures gave way to hordes of Carnifexes who would still be beaten back. Even when rock slides and landslips buried thousands of Tyrannids, the Custodes fought unshaken. Khalid died next, cooked alive by a zoanthrope who fell moments months later by Varamach and Natrius. The final 3 Wardens held until the Swarmlord himself came. It would kill both Varamach and Natrius, and it would duel with Tamerlane. The Swarmlord would lose its limbs, but when it saw victory after disarming Tamerlane, it would only taste bitter defeat in the form of a Misericordia. After beating the Swarmlord, Tamerlane looked skywards to see the arrival of an Astartes chapter. The remaining High Fleet was destroyed, and when the Astartes landed, they would be given the tools to create Primarchs Marines by Tamerlane, which were contained within the Aramite casket. Now for our last excerpt, something personal. I absolutely love the Thunder Warriors. Let's talk about Primarch Ushan versus Constantine Valdor. The Custodes were vital in the destruction and betrayal of the Thunder Warriors at Mount Ararat. Yet the great clash of Custodes versus Thunder Warrior would come when High Lord Kandawire and Primarch Ushan sought justice for the crimes committed against the Thunder Warriors. Instead of confronting the Emperor, Ushan and his legion would face Valdor as he personally led the very first and yet unnamed Astartes into battle. Ushan could down any angel of death who stood between him and Valdor, yet each landed a blow before falling. It might have taken dozens of angels, but Ushan would have died from 1,000 cuts at some point, like wolves dragging down a bear. When the weapons of Valdor and Ushan clashed, the kinetic release flattened a dozen warriors in every direction. The two giants were testing one another, hacking into each other and parrying deadly slashes. Valdor ripped a pauldron from Ushan's armor and nearly took his head along with it. Ushan was bleeding, slowly losing, yet he still pushed Valdor back for a moment. After verbal retorts and parries, Valdor found a weakness in Ushan's arm and aimed an atom-perfect blow crashing into the Primarch's breastplate. Valdor slammed him down into the snow. After a final back and forth, where Ushan verbally wounded Valdor, the last Thunder Warrior Primarch died as a last mercy pierced his heart. Now for the power skill level. For 40k we used a definitely scientifically proven rating of 40 Warhammers. If a Guardsman is 1 Warhammer, a Space Marine equals 10 Warhammers, and the Emperor of Mankind is about 40 Warhammers, how many hammers can we give to the Custodes? As shown by the lore and excerpts we have covered today, Custodes are easily the most insane warriors employed by the Emperor. While they might not be a titan, their presence on the battlefield surely is felt as one. However, Custodes remain far from unbeatable, yet every successful hit on them is paid for with 1,000 casualties. A single Custodes, even on a bad day, can beat at minimum 3 Astartes even when ambushed. With such mighty one-man armies, it leaves us wondering how the Horus Heresy would have ended if the 10,000 warriors were not bogged down in the webway, where they lost most of their warriors. And with that, I give the Custodes 25 out of 40 Warhammers. There truly exists no better bodyguards within the grim darkness of the far future, and it is no wonder the Emperor chose them as his personal companions. And that does it for today. Which Custodes excerpt is your favorite? Do you think I should have given the Custodes a higher or lower score? If you guys know of any more excerpts or crazy Custodes feats, post them down in the comment section below. I would love to read them and learn even more about these living godlike combat monsters. What else should I cover in the How Powerful is X series? Please let me know your suggestions down below. Subscribe if you enjoyed the video, like if you haven't already, and I'll be seeing you in the next one. Bye bye.